Today, a quick update on Michael's Mk3. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to go over the latest updates on Michael's Mk3 here in the shop, and just get everybody, including Michael, kind of caught up on what's been going on in the shop for those of you that don't follow us on social media. So why don't we go ahead, we'll start here at the front of the car. One of the biggest improvements you're going to see is that we spent the time this past week degreasing and power washing the engine to the point where now we can actually see the aluminum block of the engine. It was just so covered in all kinds of fluids that had leaked out of it, and of course once the fluids leak out, all the dirt and dust just kind of stick to everything. But we did a pretty good job of getting everything on the engine cleaned up. You know, even the valve covers, the intake manifold that was just, you couldn't even tell it was you know, silver, aluminum before. Everything cleaned up really nice. While we were at it, we basically power washed and degreased everything on the front of the car to the point where, you know, some of the spots that we knew that we were going to have some issues with powder coating, you know, the power washer just blew the powder coating right off in these locations. Somehow rust had got under that powder coat, and it basically just pushes the powder coat right off the surface to where when you touch it, you can tell it's just this flaky kind of material just waiting to fall off. So that did get blown off while we were power washing. We'll take those areas, we'll prep them, we'll use some paint over rust type paint and get those touched up, and then go over it with some gloss black. We are going to be addressing the front end of the car here pretty quick. We did get our coilover delivery from Factory 5, so we do have the front coilovers. We're going to change the stock 500-pound springs to 425s on this car. In my opinion, it's just a more street-friendly ride to the car, especially with a solid axle car. So we're waiting on those springs right now, and as soon as we get those springs, we'll assemble the coilovers, and then at the same time, we'll probably take these front tubes, these adjuster tubes, and we're going to order probably 2-inch longer tubes so that we can get a little bit more alignment ratio for the front end as well, because right now I'm suspecting this is probably somewhere in the 3 to 4 degrees of total caster, and I'd like to see it closer to 6. It has just a nicer tendency to self-correct after a steer, and just drives nicer on the highways, especially out here on the West Coast, with that amount of caster dialed into the front. So we're gonna be taking care of that here probably within the next week or so. We did remove all of the power steering hoses, the Hydro Boost hoses. We removed the coolant overflow, the stock one that came from the Mustang that was here on the top of the radiator core support. The radiator is out of the car right now too. There are some parts that are back ordered right now from Factory 5, radiators being one of them. And so with that, we're weighing our options. The radiator we pulled out is holding coolant. It does not have any leaks or any problems at this point. It's been in there for, what, 2006? So it's been in there since then, since the car was built. We just don't know, you know, on something like this, when that's just going to decide that it wants to start leaking. And so since we have the car torn down to this point, we're not sure if we're going to replace that or not. We're still weighing our options right there. some new aluminum pieces have gone into the car. If you remember from one of our last videos, we completely removed the firewall from the car, simply because it just had so many holes and holes drilled in it that, you know, at some point someone probably drilled to put something on, but then that was either removed or the hole was drilled in the wrong place. I can't imagine why it had so many holes. We still have it over here on the fab bench, but we made a brand new firewall out of some material we had here at the shop. This is 063, and I believe this is 5052 aluminum. And it makes it for a bit stiffer firewall. We're still going to put our firewall support back here, but so that piece is cut and it's in. We also made it to our material supply place this past week, and we picked up an entire sheet of 040 aluminum, which is the material that most of the Factory 5 stuff is made out of. We've made new F panels for the car. So I've got a right and a left. I still got to put those in the brake and get those reinstalled on the car, and I want to do that before we get into pulling that front suspension apart on the car. In the back of the car, we do have the new coilovers. I've got them right there. They're assembled. They're ready to go. I thought about this today as I was preparing to shoot the video. I probably should have done a how-to on how to adjust the rebound on these coilovers, because many people believe that these are non-adjustable coilovers. They are actually adjustable. I believe they have 4 clicks for rebound, and those rebound adjustments are made underneath this cap. It's hard to do with the coilover assembled, but this cap, this black plastic cap right here, pops off with a little screwdriver, and there's a button underneath it. And if you press that button down, hold it depressed, you can actually hold the body of the shock and turn the top of the shock, and that allows you your 4 clicks, full soft to full hard. And that's how you adjust the rebound on the red conies. The newer dual adjustables are actually 2 knobs on the outside. They're pretty self-explanatory. Anyways, on the back of the car, we did show you last time that we got all of the 3-link assembled. It's in there. It's still loose. We're going to be installing the new coilovers in the back, and at the same time, I believe I got some parts this week. I needed some hub-centric bushings for the rear brake rotors, and I think those arrived. I've got an envelope over on the desk here in the shop, and I believe those are in there. So then the rotors can go on, and the caliper brackets and the calipers can go on, and then we can finish up the actual brakes on the back end of the car. I did install a vapor recovery canister, and this helps to just eliminate some of the odors in the shop, the gasoline smell that seems predominant when you don't have one of these charcoal canisters in the car. Let's see, what else we got? That might start to be, I think that's going to pretty much catch us up, guys. The battery box, I believe, was in the last time we shot a video. However, you can see that it's in the, it's in the rear quarter of the car. We are going to have to cut an opening in the rear splash, because the rear splash panel goes in at an angle. It attaches here to the chassis and comes back at an angle right here. So this portion of the battery box will be visible through the inside of the fender well. If the tire's off, you'll be able to see it. We did work on the steering shaft. We had to dismantle and pull the entire steering shaft apart to clean it all up. It was near impossible. It had rusted so bad that the inner shaft would not slide. Now we've got free movement in it. And when we pulled the inner shaft out, we noticed a common problem with these factory 5 steering shafts, and that is that the play that you're seeing in the steering wheel right here comes from 2 Belleville washers that are supposed to be mounted within. Let's see if I can pull this out and if the recess is actually which side it's on. Okay, let's see if I can zoom you in there. So there's a recess right there for a washer. It's a domed washer, and that domed washer goes in facing up, and when the shaft is pushed down into the inner shaft, that washer takes up the slack that we're seeing right here in the steering. So those weren't in. I was very careful when I pulled this apart, when I finally got it to move, when I pulled it apart to see if the washers fell out when I pulled the inner shaft out, and they did not. So since this car was built, those washers have never been in there, and so there's an extra amount of play. You can see as I'm moving this, the wheels aren't moving at all. Not even, we're getting very little movement out of the lower shaft right there. So when we put this all back together, it will get those Belleville washers in there. That'll tighten up the steering. That also acts so that in the event of an accident, the steering wheel is collapsible. That's why we have the 2 shafts there. And those washers allow it to still collapse, but take up any of the slack that you would have in the steering shaft without putting a through bolt or set screws or something that would hold it, firmly in there and cause the steering shaft not to collapse in case of an accident. We did get now I'm finding all kinds of stuff that I forgot about. We got the brake booster temporarily installed with the spacers and the master cylinder. All this stuff is just loose right now. I don't have it tight. I just want to get all of the brake lines up and somewhat terminated to the master cylinder so that when we pull all this out, everything's not tight. I can just undo the nuts for the brake lines, and then once we get the headers, and that's what we're waiting for right now, is the headers. The steering, we will pull the steering shaft out, but we'll pull all the brake components out of the car right here so that we can have more access to get the headers installed. We're also going to cut a window in the driver's side footbox to get to the back bolts of those headers. So I'm probably going to cut out a window there, probably about 3 inches by about 10 inches. And that panel will stay removable. It'll be behind the carpet so that if anybody ever needs to get in, back in there, we'll just pull the carpet down a little bit, pull out the screws. We'll put it in with machine screws and riv nuts. And then once maintenance has been done, then the panel can go back in and the carpet can go back on top of it. We have some 3/4 inch square tube that we're going to be using right here. This is going to be spaced out, and this will mount to the existing 3/4 inch frame tube here and get carriage bolted in, and that will add reinforcement to this 3/4 inch tube. It really isn't all that structural, meaning you could run the car without it, but we don't want to cut it all the way out because that would be more work than it's worth. It holds the windshield up here, and then it ties down into the shock tower at the bottom. So we've just, on all the builds we've done, we've just gotten a habit of putting a reinforced the bar back in place when we do these. There are kits made for this that have a nice bolt-in piece that goes in there. We've just decided that we'll use our own method here in the shop, and it seems to work well for us. So brake lines are run for the back of the car from the master cylinder back into here. You can just see the brake line going into our flexible line that attaches to the rear differential. And then on the other side of the car, we've run our fuel lines, our hard fuel lines anyway. And pardon this. So we've got our AN fittings already mounted to the end. These are 37-degree flares going into our male couplings, and then they've got tube nuts and tube sleeves on those to create the seal. So those are run down along the chassis here, and then all the way to the front, and then we've got them poking right up here. And what we'll end up doing is we'll end up having a fuel pressure regulator on the firewall, and then from the fuel pressure regulator we're going to be coming off of that and feeding to our fuel rail. And since we're going to be running the Terminator X system on here, we're also going to run one of their fuel pressure transducers. And what I'm looking at right now is that the factory sensor is over on the driver's side of the car. And we put a call into Holley, and they told us that it can be used, but they made it sound like it's more work than it's worth. So for the little more than $100 it costs for the fuel transducer from Holley, I think what we're going to do is we're going to take the Schrader valve, which is right here. We'll take that out, and I believe the thread in there is a 1/8" NPT, and we will thread the Holley transducer into that part of the fuel rail and see if that gives us the fuel pressure reading that we need. If not, there will be an 1/8" port on the fuel pressure regulator as well, and we could run the Holley transducer there. So I think that may get us all caught up to this point. If you guys have any questions, just go ahead and put those in the comments. And we were going to be working on some more aluminum panels today. It's getting kind of late in the day. I don't know what more I'll be able to get done today, but I didn't want the day to go by without getting a video shot, because I think we're already running a day or two behind on getting videos out to get everybody caught up. So I really do appreciate everybody watching. It's a new experience to have you guys interested in the Factory 5 builds. I know there's a lot of other channels out there, and I know you guys are probably watching those as well. I'm overwhelmed by the amount of people that are watching the videos. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us and watching the videos. Like I said in one of the previous videos, we really shoot these videos for our the people we're building the cars for, and this is primarily to keep them caught up, because not everybody can make it out to the shop, you know, once a week or once every couple of weeks. And so this just makes a nice medium for them to view progress on their project and see exactly what we're doing here in the shop. So again, thanks guys for watching. I hope you all have a great day. See ya.